Why should we read Notes from Underground? Why should we read this book? My most simple answer to this is it gives you the chance to experience one of the most brilliant writing in literary history. The way that Dostoevsky contemplates life, reality, and humanity. You probably have heard this quote. This is the observation of the underground man about the nature of man. Shower upon him every earthly blessings, drown him in a sea of happiness, so that nothing but the bubbles of bliss can be seen on the surface. Give him economic prosperity such that he should have nothing else to do but sleep, eat cakes, and busy himself with the continuation of his species. And even then, out of sheer ingratitude, sheer spite, man would play you some nasty trick. He would even risk his cakes, would deliberately desire the most fatal rubbish, the most uneconomical absurdity, simply to introduce into all this positive good sense his fatal fantastic element. It is just his fantastic dreams, his vulgar folly that he will desire to retain, simply in order to prove to himself, as though that were so necessary, that men still are men and not the keys of a piano. Having heard that, and not read the context of the underground man is, I feel, one of the most sad things to have, as we have literature like this available in our life, and this is considered some of the great classics literature of our recent history. In this book, Dostoevsky would question freedom and determinism and the nature of humanity itself. As you go through the text, you'll witness one of the most striking critique of utopian equalitarianism, just like in the quote I read earlier. I'm making this video as a quick beginner's guide to how you can enjoy a book, a masterpiece like this, but also it's a way for me to also challenge myself to reason and walk myself through the arguments that Dostoevsky make through his character, the underground man. So if you can, try to read this book for the sake of understanding the things that is in there and reflect on what it is that you understand. From my experience, reading it the second time will give light to a lot of things that you missed from the first time and really slow down. This is not a book that you read at a normal rate. You would even have to slow this down way more than your usual reading speed. I'm a very slow reader, and I've came to accept that for books like this, my slow reading speed is an advantage, as often I find myself just pondering about the things that he wrote. What's the most striking to me is that the description of his character, the underground man, and he exhibited in his thinking, in his writing, some of the worst characteristic of humanity. The underground man exhibits some of the worst characteristic of human. And in reading his thinking and writing, almost as if it's a rant, I can have some empathy for what he writes. There's a natural tendency of man to act in spite, jealousy, in ways that he cannot explain rationally, to exert his free will, to express his freedom and free will, and his will to determine his own life, and not fall victim to rationality, as he so strongly argue against that is simply not possible to live a fully rational life. So why is this book so important? I think the novel probes the mind of an individual on the margin of society. And often now, as our society becomes more and more distant due to social media and the fast pace of life, I myself feel that I am in some instances on the margin, and I find myself having the same feeling and thinking similar to what the underground man says. Of course, his Dostoevsky brilliance is in his way of portraying this character to the extreme to make a point. But in doing so, as a reader, you don't feel that shame to witness some of the qualities that the underground man exhibit, the ways that he thinks, his spitefulness, his jealousy, his fears, and his inability to act because of his natural tendency to overthink. I think that most of us can really relate to this in our life. I can certainly relate to my life, because I find myself growing up in an Asian society where pretty much you know what's the rational thing to do. to move forward in life and get ahead of your career and just do the things that your peers are doing, to get them ahead and to get them the next job, the next internship, to be on a good career path, have a family, have kids, and fulfill duties to your parents. That's the rational thing to do. But then among those times that I try to be rational in my life, there are times where I just make decisions that has no rationality whatsoever and I can't explain it. So in a way, reading his book allows you to put into words some of the feelings that you've felt but haven't been able to see on paper. And after you see his writing, it gives you a chance to write and reflect upon yourself. Just as a medium like this also can really help that process. Reflecting on life and humanity and how we make our decisions, some of the suffering of being human. So as you read this book, I strongly encourage you to consider the critique of rationalism and the Enlightenment values and how they apply to the modern society. Explore the theme of freedom and how it relates to the underground man's struggles for agency and autonomy. Engage in discussion with your friends and others about the themes and ideas presented in this book. As I'm trying to do now, not so well. This will be a terrible video to look back at, but I will try not to delete it. So yes, this is my first video of trying to convince you to read this amazing book. I will definitely try again and write a better reflection and make another video of hopefully a more convincing video to help you to read this amazing work of literature.